Hi everyone, and welcome to a little bit of a different video. I was going to make separate videos on the V11 and the GAN 16, but then the V100 came out and I realized it would make more sense to wait for mine to arrive before doing a comparison of all three of them. So, instead of that, I thought I'd roll a few different things into one video. We'll start off with a couple of hot takes, move into a discussion about the state of hardware at the moment, and then have a bit of fun by going through my tier list. Spoiler alert, it's changed a fair amount. As always, I'd like to see your opinions down in the comment section, so feel free to go tear my opinion apart or whatever you want to do. I'd love to have some discussion on these topics. So that leads me into hot take number 1, which is the V11 kinda sucks. I genuinely don't know what MoYu was doing here, and I'm also surprised that more people haven't noticed the issues. The main problem I have is the snappiness. They took, in my opinion, the worst part about the V10 and made it even worse. It's somehow snappier even on compression setting 1, and while this is fine enough for forwards corner cutting, it makes the reverse feel extremely bad. The V10 already had questionable reverse corner cutting in my opinion, but now it just feels even worse, even if it doesn't technically perform any worse. Essentially what happens is that about 10 degrees or so into corner cutting, so about here or so, it feels like something is catching on the inside. It does do the cut all the way up to line, which is here, but it feels terrible in the process, and it's exacerbated by the ridiculous amount of snappiness. I'll just demonstrate it here. It's a bit hard to hear, but you can definitely hear it and feel it in person. It feels like it's doing a bit of a double catch, and I have not experienced this on any other cube other than the V10. So even the Tornado doesn't do it, GAN 16 doesn't do it, V9 doesn't do it. The funny thing is that I actually mained the V11 because I was able to take the standard version and add a strong small radius 8 magnet ball core. This solves the issue by giving the cube a little bit of auto alignment, so I run into the reverse corner cutting less often. Stay tuned for the upcoming comparison video where I'll get into the details of that and why I made it. That brings me on to hot take number 2. Tornadoes, like this one, are good and don't deserve the hate that they get. I've recently noticed that people just don't like the Tornado V4 very much, which is quite surprising considering how wildly popular the V3 was. Not that this is an amazing way to measure popularity, but my video on the TV4 didn't do nearly as well as even the one on the TV2, which has been obsolete for a number of years now. I still think that it's a really performant cube and offers some great customizability, with the only major flaw in my opinion being that it's a bit heavy. In fact, I like it so much that for my next comp I'll be running the V11 as my main and the V4 Pioneer as my backup main, because I think they're fairly similar and this is still a really good cube. I've seen people talk about the feel being bad, which is fair enough, but also the performance being outdated or the cube being not as good as newer options. That nicely leads me into hot take number 3. For the last 2 to 3 years, hardware hasn't advanced, it's just changed. Case in point, many top cubers were using and still are using the GAN 12, and we're only just seeing some change to the 16 and the V100. I would argue that as long as the feel of the cube is to your preferences, almost any 3x3 released in the last 3 years is still viable. Coming back to the V11, I don't necessarily think it's an upgrade over the V10. The plastic feels nicer, but they made the stock ball core models more unstable and snappier. Even the increased popularity of the V10 over the V9, I would argue, was because of the less controversial magnet strength and the cheaper price, not because it performed a whole lot better. That brings me to a couple of observations on the state of hardware at the end of 2025. First of all, we're definitely moving towards stable, crisp and light cubes, like the V11, and more away from this heavier kind of soft feel that's found in the TV4. This is somewhere in between because the plastic is still fairly soft, but it still has more crispiness than this. Most popular cubes these days are on the blockier side of things, and for a good reason. The RS3M V5 was proof that most people like this kind of feel, since it doesn't require you to be extremely accurate or careful to get the most out of the cube. The flip side is that we're losing individuality, as almost every brand has seemingly dropped everything and headed straight towards what I'll call the Weilong singularity. GAN finally ditched their 356 and legacy double-digit platform in favor of a skirted design. MoYu has switched to primary internals and is heading towards a smooth, crisp feel like GAN, and Qiyi's new TV5 prototype is said to feel almost exactly like a GAN 16. Every single major manufacturer now has a flagship 3x3 with a skirted design, most being a variation on the GTS2M's mechanism. Now, the GAN 16 is proof that a GAN cube with a Weilong mech can still feel like a GAN, but the issue is that all the other manufacturers are creeping closer to this GAN feel with every release. The 3x3 market was already overwhelming, and now it's just getting harder and harder to recommend any specific cube. What does this all amount to? In some ways, nothing much unfortunately, because it's inevitable that every manufacturer will try to win over top cubers by designing a cube with the most competitively popular characteristics. However, I still encourage you to go to competitions or try different cubes in some other way to see which ones you really like, rather than just relying on reviews from large cubing channels. It can often seem like the cubes they promote are objectively the best, when in reality it may not be ideal for you. While declining in size, the range of feels available is still broad, and you shouldn't feel locked into one choice just because fast cubers or really anyone else that isn't you likes it. I'll link our WCA hardware guide in the description below to help you out when choosing a cube. Stringrays and I have been updating this constantly for the last year and a half, with the aim of clearly setting out the differences between cubes and helping you make the choice that is best for you specifically. Speaking of that, it's now time to take a dive into the tier list. I'll just clarify that this only covers my own collection, is completely subjective, and likely won't be the same as your own tier list. I just thought it would be fun to go through the cubes since I haven't done this before. Starting with the Oh God tier, we have... oh wait, it's gone! I managed to actually fix my magnetic 356 RS by cleaning it out again, and it turns out I just sucked at cleaning and lubing before. It now sits at the bottom of C tier because it's actually okay, just a bit slow and unstable. The MGC still sucks, and enough said about that, we're moving on. Now, up to the D tier. Cyclone Boy's Feiku was my first speed cube, and it really wasn't that good from the beginning. Just listen to it. It's extremely loud, very locky, very clacky. So this has a bit of a special place in my heart, but not on the tier list. It's a similar story with the MF3 RS3M. This is the cube I hit sub 20 with. It isn't great, and I kind of ruined it with a ball core that's way too strong, plus it's extremely heavy. I think it's close to 100 grams actually. Moving up to the C tier, we have the poor GTS 3M that I bought on Facebook Marketplace. It's unfortunately dead and extremely worn out, so I turned it into spare parts. This is destined for a friend. Nothing I did could really fix the awful draggy mess of a cube that this was. So unfortunately I kept the core and I'm going to give these away. Next up we have the Weilong V2M and the Weilong 3C. They're actually polar opposites in every way and both extremely meh. The V2M is virtually non-magnetic and only usable because I put the 3C's stronger springs into it. The 3CM is now extremely fast and has medium strength magnets, but the corner cutting is lacking. In between these two we have the Qiyi MS ball core, which is this one, Qiyi MS ball core. It's alright, but it's a bit unstable and prone to popping. And the other one is the MGC Elite, which has an amazing feel but possibly the world's worst reverse corner cutting on a modern speed cube. It's worse than the Tornado V2. maybe not in sheer range, but in the way that it does it, it feels like you're getting kickback every time you do a corner cut. I'm gonna have to try to make room for all the other cubes. Now, the B tier has cubes that I would consider just below main worthy. I've done a video on the M Pro V2 and concluded that it was very old school feeling, but a bit too blocky and not that fluid to turn. The 356M with a ball core is very soft and comfortable to use, but somehow still very unstable and slightly gummy feeling. It also has some loose magnets, but that's kind of my fault and I'm just not bothered to fix that. Over here we have the Tornado V2, which is here just because the reverse corner cutting really is just that bad. It wasn't A tier, but I've decided that it's not worth trying to main this or use it for any extended period of time really. And the mini cube is here because it's fine, but it's just small. Okay, we finally make it to the A tier, which is the most populous tier here, because really a lot of cubes are quite good. I'll only really discuss a couple of things from here because most of these I've talked about before, but the main jump, oh my voice, sorry. Let me try that again. The main jump up in tier is the Huameng TG. Yes, this has a GAN sticker, but it's a Huameng TG, trust me. This one, I've resurrected and brought back from its core swapping purgatory, and now it's free of all the gumminess that it had before. I swapped to a screw core in an attempt to fix the issue, which didn't help, but again, the gumminess miraculously went away when I swapped back to the stock core, which is interesting. It's now extremely fast, to the point where I need to use the strongest core magnet setting and the middle piece magnet setting. It's only in the A tier and not the S tier because it's a tiny bit uncontrollable and prone to the occasional corner twist, and I'm too scared to try to set it up again to make it slower. The other interesting one here is the RS3M with the Dorito mods and the ball core. This one again, I set it up and it's very good actually. It's very light to turn, strong core magnets, quite a bit more stable than the stock version. And even though these two occupy the bottom two spots on the list, the gap between them is pretty significant. Actually, this is the Worm V9. This is the RS3M without the ball core. And okay, I'm gonna actually have to move all of these. I'll be back in a second. Okay, we're back. The S tier has had a bit of a shuffle and seen some new additions. I mentioned before that I liked my modded V11 despite its flaws, and begrudgingly I do have to give it the top spot because it is my main. It's just so reliable and stable that I barely have to worry about locking up. It's got a nice, soft, but still slightly crisp feel, and in spite of the snappiness, I still really like this. The XT3 V1 is still one of my favorites thanks to its soft, light and crunchy turning. It's just not quite as reliable as the V11. The GAN 16 also falls into the same category. It's stable and has a clinical, clean feeling glide, but it's just slightly too unforgiving for me to use it in a comp setting. As always, the Worm 21 and Tornado V4 are still favorites, being variations on the theme of soft and plush. And with that, that's the whole tier list. You can pause the, oh, hang on, who's that up the top? Apologies, I'm not sure how she got there, just do your best to try to ignore her. Yes, pause the video if you would like to have a bit more of a look, or go back and look through the sections, and with that, I'll move on to the conclusion. I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thanks again for watching. Hopefully I'll have another music video coming out in the next month or so, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, see you in the next video.